Welcome, everybody, to our insurance series with Ryan Reckenberg. We are going to chat about some myths in regards to insurance, which I'm sure we've all heard these things. It's kind of interesting to know actually what is true and what is not true. I'm sure you get a lot of questions, do you, on a regular basis on specific myths and that kind of thing?
I absolutely do. I get these commonly, and there are a lot of them that people have kind of thought are true or believed to be true, and they're surprised when they hear that it's otherwise, or that what they're basing their decisions on, buying things or getting things, kind of really throws them for a loop.
For sure. So I guess I'll get right to a couple of the ones that I had on the top of my list, and we'll kind of discuss them. And then if you have anything to add, we'll do that at the end.
Perfect.
Okay. So do red cars cost more money to insure? And I have heard this lots of times.
A lot of people seem to believe this, and the theory goes that the red is sportier, and that's the essential reason why. But in fact, absolutely not. It's has more to do with the make, model, even the year of the vehicle. Like for example, a 2024 Honda RAV4 or like similar might actually be more expensive than a sportier car. But it depends on the year, the make, and the model, as well as the driver themselves,
Right.
than anything to do with the color. You can feel free to buy a red car, buy a purple car, buy a green car. You're all good.
It's
It's
not
never
going
the paint
to.
color.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So full coverage means everything is covered.
Okay, there's a couple of parts to this one, and there's also a thing called all perils. So even under all perils coverage, not everything is covered. So every contract, every insurance agreement will have what's called exclusions. They're written in by the government of the province that you're in, under the statutory conditions. So things like mechanical repair due to wear and tear, or those types of things, will always be excluded. The major thing is comprehensive collision. When you mix them together, a lot of people call that full coverage. But there's also all perils that comes with both of them, as well as a little bit of additional coverage. But you're never completely covered. There's going to be exclusions, but your best coverage is either all perils or combining collision and comprehensive.
Okay. Noted. So when it comes to home insurance, I guess the myth that you hear is home insurance covers all types of damage.
That falls under the same thing as the vehicles for the all perils, or for collision and comprehensive. Depending on your home policy, they have specified perils, they have comprehensive coverage, they have all perils. Um, Even under all of these perils, there are things that will be excluded. So on the house side, things to look out for that are common exclusions and are always usually excluded will be there's crazy ones like war risks. So if your house is hit by a bomb, or if someone drives into your house, there's also ones like that are common, like seepage through basement foundation is one that comes up a lot on claims that will be denied. Having mold or spores or an infestation of animals, or of like insects, that kind of thing, those are actually excluded under all policies. So there
Okay.
there is a good way. Make sure that you're covering your house. My recommendation is always look, the more comprehensive the coverage, the more kind of all inclusive you go, the better. You're looking for more of an all perils coverage, but again, not everything is covered. There's going to be exclusions, no matter what. So that's why it's important to read your policy.
Yeah. So there's things like the sub pump, failing sump pumps,
Yes.
stuff like that. Would that be something you would add additional coverage onto, or is that is there like add-ons that you can add to your policies?
If it's a failure, like mechanical failure, then it comes down to the answer of why. And that's why we have like insurance adjusters will come out and do inspections. If it's mechanical failure due to faulty part, then what we would do is have them and go after the manufacturer for the part, under like a company liability. Or if it's just due to poor maintenance or something that is easily foreseeable, then they will decline, or they will negate the claim and say like, yeah, we won't pay it out.
Because a lot of
It's,
times as a realtor, I see some pumps will fail due to hydro loss. And if they don't have a battery backup, that like what do you do? Right. So
yeah.
in
And
that area.
one of the other common things that comes up house policy wise, that is one of the exclusions, would be power failure due to like sudden on-site. So if it's something like a storm causes your power to go out, and then it damages electronics, damages mechanical parts that are failing, that's one of the common exclusions. And so the best thing and the recommendation I have to homeowners is look to have like a secondary power source, look to have like a generator that you can rely on in a situation like that to avoid it. There will be some coverage under a lot
Mhm.
of policies, but it's an exclusion.
Do you have, here's a question
Yeah.
that's not on my list, but if you have a Generac system or a generator backup, does that, because I know sometimes with auto insurance, you get winter tires, you get a discount, right?
Yes.
Stuff like that. Like if you have a
There
generator system, does that help with what home
there
insurance?
are some companies that actually have discounts based on having like a secondary or a backup power source. Absolutely, they are out there. That is a thing that is in the industry, and it's something to keep an eye out for. And if you have one, to ask for
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the minimum auto insurance required by law is enough.
it. Okay, I this is one of those ones that I get often, and
Yeah.
I have this conversation pretty much on the daily. The important word to underline, of course, in that sentence is minimum. The minimum liability that technically you have to carry on your vehicle is $200,000. I would never recommend that to anybody, because that will pay for any damage that you cause to others, both like physically as well as to their property. And so minimum coverage is something to be very careful about. It's never a good idea to just go with the minimum. It's like going in somewhere and you pay the minimum for, if it's garbage tags, whatever the item is, or like zip ties, you're going to get what you're paying for. And so going through the coverages with your agent, and kind of having that conversation, and really identifying your pain points
Hmm.
is an important situation. So if you're someone who's a pharmacist or owns multiple pharmacies, or you're a doctor, or you're a high earning salesperson, whatever it is, you might consider looking at more of the income replacement part of your accident benefit minimum. Or if you're someone who has like a high net worth, you're probably going to want to max out your liability. It just makes the most sense to protect you. Like it's you should look at the insurance as kind of a fence around you, and it's keeping out kind of the dangers, and
Right.
really relying on like a minimum motor, a minimum wall is questionable, but they are set by the Ontario government, and they're meant to protect. But in a lot of cases, they're just not really where you want to be in a lot of situations.
And we've had conversations before where we've talked about, the coverage and how you personally have to come good for the coverage in excess of what you're already covered for, right? So if you're
Yeah,
covered for 500,000 and it's 2 million, you're on the hook for 1.5 million
exactly. And
personally.
yeah, your personal liability, that's what you will have to end up paying, or have held against you. And in a lot of those situations, once they get to court, if you're sued like in tort, like for a court case where you've done a damage, the problem is it will then be held against you. They can take your pay, they can hold all of your payment, so you end up with literal nothing. And
That's
and
crazy.
that's
It
the
could
situation
completely
where you want
change
to
your
stay away
life.
from.
It could destroy your life.
Exactly.
And this is a really good one because I've had this question myself: is the insurance follows the driver, not the car?
This is one of those gray ones. So in most cases, it will actually follow the car, not the driver, especially in Ontario. So a situation, and I have this conversation a lot with other people, is a mother, say for example, who has like an adult child or whatever, or friend, even a friend. If you hand them your keys, the best way to think about it is if you lend your car, then you're lending your insurance, because
Right.
your insurance will be the one covering them on that vehicle. They
Right.
will be the primary. They can have their own insurance. So if I'm lending you my car and I say, okay, Michelle, here's my car. Can you run to the store and get me a couple of things? My insurance is the one that's the primary. Even though you have your own insurance, it will only pay the secondary parts if there's an overage. So yes, it follows the car, not the driver in most situations.
So if I get into an accident while I'm driving your car to the store, that's going against your insurance. Like that's
Well,
going.
you'd be the driver. It would be listed on your policy, but it would be paid by my insurance policy.
Okay. So does that affect you negatively because it was me?
Well, it's on my vehicle, so yeah, it would hurt both of us. So,
Right.
but
Right. That makes sense.
more so the driver than the vehicle owner. But yeah, it's listed as on both.
Okay. So here's a scenario. So I borrow your car to go to the store, but I actually don't own my own vehicle. I just have my license. What
Yeah,
changes in that scenario?
it's still
Nothing.
held against you if you ever go to get insurance, but it's also
Okay.
listed on mine, and I
Okay.
pay out for it, and it's listed as an accident under my policy. You're just the driver,
Okay. Okay.
third party driver.
All right. Um, Renters don't need insurance.
False. This is a
Yes,
big
they do.
false. Big false. Uh, if you're renting, you still have your contents. You still have your stuff that you own. You still have your jewelry. You still have your bed. You still have your items.
Right.
So you may not want to, even if you're renting the basement in a friend's house or something along those lines, and you consider yourself insured under their policy. You're not. You're an exclusion to that policy. So you're not. If there's a fire in that house and you're renting the basement and all of your things are lost, their policy is not going to cover you. You're going to have your own policy. So it is important to have tenant or content insurance for your own things,
Right. That makes
even if
sense.
you don't own the property.
Right. So I guess in my case, with my dad living with us, he has his room with his stuff in it. If something happened to our home, the stuff that was in his room would not be covered in our policy.
If it was someone other than your dad, yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure. That just sparked me to go, oh, does my
No.
dad need like content insurance?
He would be direct family. If it was cousin,
Friend.
then no.
Right.
Friend, no. But like,
Okay.
yeah, it can even be as close as like cousin or like a situation where it's not direct blood.
Okay. Um, my home insurance covers my home-based business.
So no, there are some things that can be allotted for, and that will maybe be covered. But if you're talking business-based liability, so if you make soap in your basement or in your garage, or you do woodwork out in your garage, and there's something that you make that's faulty and it hurts someone, you have no business liability insurance. You'll have no protection if financial stuff is robbed from it. You have no coverage for any of those things.
So if you're a
Even
woodworker and you have all of your pieces in your garage and your garage gets robbed
yes,
and all of that gets taken,
then it's not
That's
covered.
not covered.
Absolutely.
Right.
So any product, anything that you can think of, even to some of the tools, depending, some may not. That's where it comes in.
Right.
And there'll be a limitation on it. And if they find out it's related to home-based business and you're doing it as like a commercial venture, it's highly successful, they will just decline it based on not disclosing the fact that you're even running that home-based business.
Right.
There are some extensions to policies where you can have an extension to your home policy added for a home-based business. They're not expensive, and the coverage is there. That's probably the best way, is just to have it tacked onto your home if it's a small, like, little cottage industry based one. If it's larger, get your own corporate or your own commercial policy.
Business policy. This one is probably would be a popular question, is filing a claim will always increase my insurance premiums.
I get this one a lot all the time too. There are a ton of different kinds of claims that will not affect your insurance at all. So if you're thinking about like auto based, not at fault claims are not held against you financially. If you have numerous instances of them, it may lead the insurer to then question
What's
their
going on?
risk on it. No,
Yeah.
it's even like not in a fraud way, but in a, hey, why does this person have like 6 glass claims? And then they may implement some changes to the policy or maybe drop the person.
Okay.
Like there can be negative ramifications that are not cost related. On house, same thing. There are some things, especially we call them CAT claims, so catastrophic losses, things that are unforeseen. Massive ice storm comes through, CAT claims will not be held against you as well. So there are a ton of situations where there's no negative ramification at all. Same thing if it's a comprehensive claim on your vehicle, if it's glass damage, or if it's, those are not held with a surcharge. What we would say a surcharge, or like an increase to the general public.
Right.
So,
Okay. Older drivers always pay more for car insurance.
this is false. 100% false. No, there is, in reality, once you get older, it's kind of like a bell curve. So if you're picturing kind of like a up and then down. So when you start out, it's really high, kind of middle career. Yes, there is like a dip towards the bottom. And then as you get older, it does slightly increase. But the other thing that you have to factor into this is you will be having, if you're in your 80s, you could easily have 55, 60 years driving history behind you. And if you're a safe driver with a long record, you're going to be paying peanuts for your auto insurance no matter where you go. So
Okay.
it also, a lot of older drivers are in fact driving a lot smaller cars because they don't feel as comfortable with their reaction time, which
Right.
are slightly cheaper in a lot of cases. And then the other part of it is they do not drive as many kilometers. Like there's a lot of positives for the older driver to rely on to bring
Right.
the rates down. So usually they're in line or cheaper than kind of like mid age people.
And
with a long history.
that's based on having a good driving record. If you have a crappy driving record, then obviously that's going to make changes to your premiums.
That's everybody. If I had a crappy driving record, my insurance would be high as well. So
Exactly. The more dings or the more claims or whatever that you have on your driving record, the higher you are going to pay.
exactly.
This is the last one that I have. So insurance companies always pay out claims immediately.
No. And the reasoning why this one's false is, in a lot of circumstances, there's a lot of investigation that needs to be done. It's a process. And so you call in, you make the claim, they're going to want to investigate, especially if it's if it's a fire, if it's a water damage,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's auto or whether it's home, they're going to want to investigate cause, like what the cause of the actual, like the
Incident.
root cause.
Yeah.
And we have fancy words for all these things, but that's okay. So you want to find out what the original cause was that led to it in like as direct a line as possible, because you may see it as, okay, the fire caused the fire in my home, but it could just as easily be lightning hit something that then caused a spark that then caused the fire. So they want to investigate what the root cause is to see the best way to
Like,
pay
did I
the
leave
claim
my
out.
hair straightener on a towel in the bathroom that caught fire that caused my house to burn down or
Yeah,
something?
and they want to kind of dig back to what the root cause is, and then they'll say, okay, is the root cause insurable? Is that something that we're allowed to cover under the policy? If so, then it moves to the next stage, and then the next stage is, okay, what else? Is there anything in the policy? And they're reading through like the 100-page documentation saying, okay, how do we cover this? What's the best way? And in most cases, what they're looking for is to find the way to make you the most whole. So
Right.
some people think it's okay, they're digging in to deny the claim, and that's also not true. In
Right.
99.9% of cases, they're seeing what they can cover and for how much they can then create each coverage under. And there's never an easy claim. In a lot of cases, some of the auto claims are easy because it's okay, this person is at fault, this is what's covered, and then but
Right.
property gets very, very complicated very fast.
Yeah, and I would imagine too with auto, like if sometimes the car gets rode off and it's like a total loss or whatever
Yeah,
you want to call it. I don't know, but
and it can be drivable and still be written off as a total loss because it's just not worth it to repair certain vehicles.
right, right. Do you have any other questions that you feel that you get that might be worth addressing?
One that I get that comes up quite a bit because it's just kind of also like area specific or whatever is the idea of comprehensive coverage, and some people think that comprehensive is essentially there to cover either everything that's not considered a collision or that want to consider it kind of a catch-all. And there are some things that comprehensive, a lot of people don't understand comprehensive insurance under auto, and so essentially it's the one that will protect in a lot of non-collision. So like if you hit an animal, it would be covered under that, or like a gravel chip on your windshield would be a glass claim under your comprehensive, or even theft of your vehicle. If someone breaks in, steals your vehicle, it's a comprehensive claim. If someone comes along, keys your car, or vandalizes your car in any way, that's also considered comprehensive. Some natural disaster things, some flooding, some like those types of things,
Like
and
lightning hits the tree and the tree falls on my car.
exactly that.
Right?
See, perfect example. Those are the kind of things that are used. It's really specific for what it covers, but it covers those. And as we discussed before, comprehensive claims, the advantage is they're not collision claims, and so you're never considered at fault and they're never really rated against you unless
Right.
you have a ton of them, and then they'll question why. Like,
Yeah.
why are you parking under the same tree that's hit your car like 4 times?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other one that's kind of interesting is on property stuff as well as on auto stuff. A lot of people don't know fire damage to your car, lightning damage to your car, like those two, we'll call them perils. So like those two things, if that is the cause of the damage, 90 to 95% of policies on the market don't even have a deductible that are applied. So if those are because that's the root cause, and that's a lot of them, there's just no deductible. So you're not paying anything for those being the causes. There are some situations where they will say yes, and if it's arson, then they just decline the claim. But
Yeah.
that's why they investigate those.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
those are two that come up to me a lot and get
Mhm.
questioned, are about fire and lightning and what's considered a peril that's covered. Another perfect example for house insurance specifically, there are some things that you can add at additional costs that are not covered. So you have things like landslide or earthquake not covered under general house policies. You can add like an earthquake or a land movement clause to your policy as what's called an endorsement, like an add-on.
Okay.
And it's an additional cost for you, but in some situations, definitely worth it. The other one is total collapse of a house. They have a thing called house collapse, and that's usually not covered, but you can actually find. And ice quakes is another one, and we get them sometimes out in Quebec. And
Oh,
it's when you get like frozen waters under like aquifers and stuff that actually will break apart your thing. And so there's an additional cover for ice damming or ice quake.
okay.
So
I've never even heard the term ice
there
quake
there you
before.
go. Those are coverages. If you're worried about it, talk to your agent.
Yeah.
If you're like, what are the realistic and in Ontario, there's two areas that are earthquake proof. Well, earthquake hotspots, I suppose,
Okay.
but I don't even like using the term hotspots, lukewarm spots, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's kind of towards the border of like Quebec and Ontario, both northern down through like even into the county. And then the other one, which is the more major one, is out west towards
Okay.
like in BC, because it continues up, and it just has to do with plates and if you actually think this is realistically going to happen,
Yeah.
and you take your guess as to what's going to happen for earthquake or land movement.
Right. For sure. Well, I think that's very informative. I think that maybe we've put some people at ease knowing that some of these things that they may have been told or have thought were true were not. Um, yeah, and it's just good information to know, obviously. So,
And you can always reach out, talk to someone who works in insurance if you have a question, if you've always thought something was true, just ask them. They'll know.
absolutely. And Ryan is obviously available to answer any of your questions when it comes to home and auto and all that kind of insurance. So, feel free to reach out to him or reach out to me, and I will reach out to him for you. But we're just here to just educate you and give you information that maybe you didn't already know.
And I hope I find more myths to bust.
Yes. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.